All right, so today I want you guys to welcome a very special guest. This is Russell Emanuel. And Russell, I was very surprised to see pop up in my inbox just the other day saying that he stumbled across some of my videos recently about the AI stuff and all the really interesting things that we talk about on this channel. And you might not be aware, but Russell is the CEO of a little company called Extreme Music. Now, I say that kind of facetiously. Extreme Music, for me, is a massive company. It's been one of the companies that I've always looked to in terms of being inspired and looking to cool and in referential tracks that I can basically get ideas from, essentially, without copying them. But always looking for Extreme Music for sort of like paving the way in our industry for making really cool, authentic artist music, essentially, that works in TV and film productions. So Russell, obviously a big player in our industry. He's been around for a long time. He co-founded Extreme Music all the way back in '97, actually. So well before I even knew production music was even a thing. He was in London. Some of the artists and composers that they have distributed over the years include Quincy Jones, Hans Zimmer, George Martin, Snoop Dogg, Exhibit, Timbaland, and there's plenty more. I could basically be on here for an hour. So obviously, extremely impressive clients and artists and composers that they've represented. They were actually acquired by Viacom in 2005, and then in 2008 again by Sony ATV Publishing. So obviously that means they're doing something well. They've got big players that came in and swooped them up, and so they are still doing well and still thriving now. As of 2020, Sony ATV announced that it was going to merge the two production music divisions, which is Extreme Music and EMI Production Music, which is now known as KPM, under one banner, and that's all being led by Russell here. So obviously he's a pretty busy guy, so we really do thank him and appreciate his time today. And what I want to do, Russell, is just basically introduce you and also have you talk about your early days. In my research before this interview, I found that you were playing bass for a punk band. You were a studio assistant at Abbey Road. Let me know if those are actually true. And if those are true, how that's true. Where did sync music come into your life, and how did you stumble into this crazy world?
Crikey, that's a lot. Well, first of all, thanks. I think I told you just before this that I stumbled across you um, while doing a deep dive into some of the issues that we have in the industry at the moment. And I mean, as you mentioned, AI and other issues. And your channel is amazing, really, really great. I didn't expect to be on it. I just sent you a bravo, and then so thank you for having me. And that intro makes me sound like a grown up and an old grown up as well. 97, crikey. But yeah, that's everything that you mentioned is true. And I think, as you can see from where I am, I'm kind of a reluctant CEO, and I tell people that the motivation for me being in this business is because I love music, not business, and the business is a happy byproduct. So I always feel I have a lot of imposter syndrome when someone introduces me the way you just did. And I'm super lucky, and we just came across Extreme was formed, as you said, in '97, and the timing was just right. Production music or music libraries, depending on where you are in the world, was just a kind of poorly served, bit of a lazy industry. I had, if you saw, I don't know if you've read it, I had very early on, I'm really dating myself now, but when I was kind of 18, 19, worked in a mail room of one of the original production music libraries, Brute Music, literally stuffing vinyl into envelopes and sending it out. That's the way it used to work there. And that was really my first kind of introduction slash brush with library music. And then, I wanted to get out the mailroom as quickly as possible. So my band got signed to EMI, went off, did everything I can to have a commercial career with some success. It wasn't great success, but I had a few record deals and actually ended up, and I suppose this is a kind of foresight into my future. I ended up being a better manager than I was a touring musician, and ended up managing some bands specifically through the punk era and then the punk reformation era. I spent a long time on the road with a band called Stiff Little Fingers, which is where I met my business partner, Dolph Taylor, who I formed Extreme with in '97. if that isn't long-winded. And really, honestly, it was a way. Production music at that point in '97 was really a way for me not to have a real job. Little did I know it would turn into this crazy real job. Um, so saying a lot, sorry about that, but Dolph and I kind of had this vision of creating a production music library that had the values of a kind of independent record label. We set up in what was formerly the Stiff Records office in Camden Town, met a very generous VC who funded us with no business plan, by the way. We had no idea what we were doing. In fact, I remember I was introduced to him and I sat in his office telling him this grand idea. We're going to create a music library, and it's this part of the industry that's super lazy, and we're going to bring all our friends. And at the time, we had Dave Stewart lined up and a bunch of other people. And I've got this great idea. And he goes, "Great, how much do you want?" And I had no idea. And he literally said, "My boardroom is just over there. I want you to go spend half an hour and just kind of make a list of what you need and how much money you want." And that's how it started. It was super conservative. I think I came out and I asked him for £60,000 to start the whole. And of course, it was an immediate yes. And he was an amazing guy. It just went from there.
Wow.
Sorry, that was really long, wasn't it?
No, I think it's fascinating because these are obviously the days of this industry kind of really taking shape and taking form, and also paving the way for somebody like me to do it full time. This is why it's obviously very relevant for me selfishly, but everybody watching this are going to be composers and producers of various levels and different experiences. So one thing that I think that extreme music really started to pave the way for, at least early in my career, was creating cool production music, right? There was a lot of cheesy, whatever, useful, definitely placeable, licensable music, but there was a lot of, not so exciting production music basically in the world. And I started noticing that your label, among basically, I think, standing mostly on its own, was paving the way and showing a path for you can make cool production music. It doesn't have to be cheesy. It doesn't have to be lame. It can be so cool that you could become a fan of it. And I actually became a fan of many of the composers and artists on your label and many others as a result of this interesting industry that we found a part of. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the founding of the company and why you guys specifically went for authentic, high quality music, and how did you have that foresight to know that would be something that would be creating a lot of value in the TV film world?
Well, previous to us starting, there was still some amazing music being recorded. If you look at the history of DeWolf and KPM, if you dive into that, if you've got time, there's some amazing kind of TV themes and orchestral themes being recorded by great musicians at the time. And then for some reason, it had this kind of weird period for me during the kind of 80s, early 90s, where it got really lazy and just become music. And I think if you dig in there, clearly you're an expert, you can hear it. So by the time we came to it, it was obvious. I just read a book by Richard Branson, and it was advising people on business. And by the way, I'd never read. I think it's the only book I've ever read. And if I got halfway through it, I'd still be amazed. But it said, if you want to go into business, find an industry that's been poorly served and go in. And I can't even remember the exact quote, but that was the sentiment. And I was like, oh, production music. It was that spurred me. I remember I was actually on a Virgin flight at the time when I was reading it. And so I think in answer to your question, it was not a conscious decision. It was just natural. It was, I'd been a producer, as you said. I'd worked in many studios in London, and been immersed in the industry, in the commercial side of the industry for quite some time. And it was just felt like the right thing to do. And, at the time, Ministry of Sound was popping off, and dance music was in its heyday. And I remember, just our immediate kind of group of friends were who we reached out to. And subsequently, they were all producing at the highest level. It was really hard to kind of persuade them to do library music. It was really hard. We had to have like compromising pictures of them in order to persuade them. But a few of them were gracious enough. And I think we had like 3 or 4 albums. I remember one was a house album and one was a Latin album and one like, and we really kind of, because we were so focused on what we were doing, we were sweating every detail. And it just was what you do when you make a record rather than when you make production music. So I remember we released like 4 or 5 albums, and the reaction was immediate. It was really crazy. The instant kind of, I think partly because of the name, in all honesty, that kind of extreme music in the 90s. And then I think, we released the first album, and within weeks we had some very big syncs. And I can remember that the guy there who was like the biggest guy in the industry there was a guy called Peter Cox, who ran KPM at the time. And he called me and he said, come up for a meeting. I was like, oh, this is scary. I went up there and he said to me, if I was doing it again, I'd do it the way you're doing it. I'd really focus on quality. We're locked into this machine where we have to release lots of albums every month. I produce in quality, and I do this kind of one genre of music per album. And I didn't even know we were doing that. And I remember coming out, I had a cell phone. I only had a cell phone because I'd been a tour manager recently, and I had this big, and I phoned my partner. I said, guess what we're doing? We're doing one genre of music per album. It hadn't even occurred to us. And that was really the start. And I think, although it's easy for me to take credit, it's much more to do with the talent that we were using. And I think that was the spur of like, okay, we've got to try and attract the very best producers and songwriters that we can. Oh, sorry, not songwriters came later. It was all instrumental at that point.
That's amazing. Yeah. So just following your gut and knowing that you're not going to put anything out unless you're excited about it and you give it your stamp of approval. So it just sort of naturally goes to higher quality, just following those principles. So that makes a lot of sense. So back in those early days, let us know what kinds of syncs were you seeing? What kinds of niches of the industry were you finding that you were serving best? And, you fast forward to today, you guys have pretty much everything. I mean, I can imagine every type of genre, from trailer music to minimal music to tension music to artist music to vocals. I mean, you literally name it, throw a dart at a dartboard. You guys have something like that in your catalog these days. So these days, I would imagine you guys have branched out into so many different new opportunities. Are there still, compared to those early days of having a couple of opportunities, do you still find that there are some places you guys tend to keep shining in? There are certain little niches of either TV, film, content that you guys tend to really still focus on, or are you guys now just kind of at all fronts attacking the industry anywhere you can get your hands on it?
Well, I think the length of time and has seen us kind of touch all areas of production. Funny enough, there's always something new to uncover, and I think that's what's exciting about this industry. You always think, oh, what am I going to do next year? And there's always something cool and new, and that's the great thing about music. It's ever evolving, and it's, our job is to inspire, and we try not to tread the old ground. Although there's definitely an element of refreshing because there's wear and tear. We have to continue to service our clients. I think, in answer to your question, I'm not sure I can really remember what the first kind of syncs. I remember a few big ad campaigns because you remember we were kind of, London was a hub of creativity in Soho, and it still is. So it just spiders out. And the thing about production music, as you know, is sometimes you don't know where the music's being used for a long time. I tell this to composers all the time. They'll say, can you give me a report of where my music was used last month? And I go, absolutely, I have no idea. And everyone's surprised that we're not like a sync label. But what is incredible now is that our talent pool is our greatest A&R asset. And they'll tell us what's happening and what's cool. And we have an amazing music team as well. So it comes from all areas. And, you know, you spoke about vocals, moving into songs. That was a big shift, by the way. I know now everyone, but no one wanted song production music. And it was always a thing between myself and my partner. And I can't even remember now when it was, but probably, 10 or 12 years ago, we put out our first kind of pop song album. And again, the reaction felt like it did when Extreme started. Instantly, the clients responded to it. It's like, thank God, And now I would say 50%, 50%, maybe even more than what we do are vocal led. And with the advent of stems and manipulation and some of the stuff we've got coming up with that is great. I mean, essentially, a great song is a great instrumental song anyway. So nowadays.
Absolutely. You're always going to have that secondary asset anyway. So yeah. And that's really cool to hear because it's exactly what I've been saying on this very channel for about 2 years now, which is vocals, 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 vocals.
Right.
TV and film clients are asking for it more. It's becoming much more in demand, especially with the advent of AI music becoming. We don't know exactly how it's going to potentially enter our market or not. We don't know. But certainly one way that artists and producers can help to insulate themselves a bit more is by adding more of the human vocal element to their music. And certainly, why not if the TV and film clients are asking for more and more of it? Not just major trailers and ad campaigns, but I'm also noticing reality TV shows and things that you usually wouldn't see a lot of. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, you look at Love Island and Love is Blind and all those shows. And look, I'll tell you something, I still find this really exciting. We've got a number of instances where this happened. The advent of Shazam is so important. And I'll give you my kind of, tentpole story. I think that's what they say. So we have a song called Icy Red, which this year is certified gold. Something like 2 billion TikToks, and it's crazy. And it was a #1 global viral US, Germany, in all these individual territories hit 2 years ago from a use on a Polish movie. It was just a Polish movie that blew up. It was called 365 DNI. You can look at it. And this is a production music song. Essentially, it was created for production music, and now it's a bona fide hit. It's on America's Got Talent. It's been performed, on Idol and all over the world. And it's just a great song, and a great song will find, water finds its own level. And it was used in this specific scene. You can't recreate this stuff, by the way, since we've tried paying influencers and viral camera, and all the things you try never works. It just got the right placement and capture, just like the commercial industry. And we've had a few other instances, and it was Shazam that made that happen. And, I hope we see more and more of that, because it encourages attention to detail that perhaps songwriters would have overlooked in the production music space.
Absolutely. And it also bridges the gap between us being behind the scenes, nobody ever sees our name, no credit, nothing, to people engaging and loving our music so much that they want to go stream it again and watch it and consume it and maybe even purchase it. So absolutely, when those home runs happen, I mean, definitely we're very grateful for them. Very few for sure. So these days, though, you, Extreme Music, sort of the umbrella company, you guys are representing many different catalogs and labels, right? So maybe you can give us a little overview on how does that work? How does that working relationship work with all these various catalogs that are submitting to you? Do they each submit to you an album at a time? Do they submit to you like a group of albums at a time? Are you asking them specifically for certain things? Do you kind of give a hands-off approach, say, hey, you guys let us know what you guys think would be great and hot for the market, and we'll...
No, we're super controlling.
Okay.
We have to be... it's hard to give one story, but we don't want repetitive music. We don't want another catalog just doing so. So we go to specialists. For example, you may have to do a bit of research here, but when we decided to go to trailers, we partnered with a company called Two Steps from Hell, Nick Phoenix and Thomas Bergson, who were kind of the gold standard of trailer music at the time. we have a crime label, and that's head. The lead producer there is Jimmy Levine, and well known in the crime space, Rizzoli and Isles, and I mean he's at the very top of his game, and I think without talking about each and every one of them, authenticity is the overarching mission objective of all of those. So, for our users, and that's really what we have to think about is, why the hell am I going to use it? And why do I need another production music label? And I think one thing is there's a perception that we release a ton of material, and we really don't. And I'm constantly, and our music team are very focused on this, is quality over quantity every time. And that, when you're producing for I want to be, every company has its own thing, and it's wrong for me to really talk about them. But if we're producing a ton of material, then all of our partners and all of our producers and all of our talent not only have to produce material, but they have to produce a ton of it just to get visibility in the catalog. And that's something we really are violently against. So we're surgical about what we release, even when we have partner labels. And we actually say, well, if we go into an agreement, we'll say you can only release 20 albums a year. So pick carefully. And it's, by the way, honestly, it's a constant fight would be the wrong word, but it's, I think the people that have been in business with us a long time actually learn and appreciate that absolutely that is the right move.
Makes a lot of sense, especially for your quality over quantity strategy there. So let's talk also about from the music that you guys are creating in-house, so not from your sub labels or catalogs that you have agreements with, the music that you and your inner team are creating. Let's talk about what are those different divisions, what kinds of styles do you guys do? Are these in-house composers you hire, or are you taking on direct composers that submit to you? How does that working relationship work with the people that are actually making music underneath directly Extreme Music's broader umbrella catalog?
Within pop music, in most of the genres, we don't have. Extreme itself has no in-house composers, specifically because we believe that that's the recipe to have a library that sounds like a library. Because in order to keep them busy, they're doing multiple styles of music. They're not specialists, and that's really what we want. When someone, I'm sure we're pitched by composers all the time, and I can tell you, this is my word of advice for us. Is don't come to me and say, or don't come to us and go, hey, I'm a composer, I can do anything that you want me to do. Right? Because then you're a jack of all trades. It's an instant turn off, and just say, hey, I've got this one thing, and and that's what gets everybody excited. I remember last year we had this guy come to us and he circuit bends toys. Crazy stuff. And we have one label where everything that is created for this one label is found in thrift stores and these garage sales, and it's kind of this, vintage instruments. And just the more unusual, the more inspiring it is for the artist, the more inspiring it is for the end user. And then when it comes to kind of pop catalog, it's like, I do urban music and I kill it.
So make sure I get this correct. So you're saying you do not ever accept composers or artists directly. You would only accept music through a catalog, through a label?
No. We definitely do accept artists directly. That's our preferred method. Absolutely.
Okay. But you want them to come with a specific focus, right?
Come with a focus, or come with something you're great at. And by the way, it doesn't have to be as specialist as I just said. It could just be, I'm an incredible top line guy. I'm an amazing songwriter. But just what I'm saying is, for us, just a kind of generic library writer is,
You got to have something really unique. And for the few that have made it through into your, I'm imagining you have like a submission email or a portal somewhere on your website people can get to. But for the few that can get your attention, with their music. Are there any sort of hints or tips you can give to somebody to really help make sure they're bringing like the best package possible? Do they need to have a full album ready to go? Do they need to have a certain type of website that they're pitching through? Something in their email that lets you know that they're not a newbie, that they know that there's going to be deliverable assets required or metadata. Like what for you when you get a submission and you're like, you know what?
No, I think sometimes our most exciting material comes from newbies. I don't think we have any specific rules. I mean, people think we do. I mean, I think the tip is, some long essay is, no one's got the time to read a long essay. And by the way, no one's got the time to listen to 20, 30, 40 tracks. It's like, just send the very best. I mean, you can have it there. It can be waiting in the wings, but just, and I always find it interesting when someone says, hey, I was listening to what you do, and I think I can add to this area, or someone who's given it some thought rather than is clearly just pitching all the libraries.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense for sure. And let's finish up this one with AI, because obviously that might have been one of the topics that sort of connected us in the very beginning. And I sort of rounded you up here to get you on the channel. But let's dive into it. I know that's a very controversial and somewhat scary topic of what's going on in our world. But what brought your interest to AI? Where are you with it right now? What's your general take in terms of how much of it are you guys using at Extreme Music to help, enable you and human composers to thrive? How much of it do you think is going to be a potential threat for us? Just your overall take on the whole subject.
Gosh, I wish I had the answers. I think the AI anxiety, I don't know personally. I mean, I'm sure I was as anxious as everybody else is currently, and there's no doubt there's a threat there, but there's a threat from new competitors all the time, and AI is our newest competitor. And look, this could be a 3-hour conversation, as you know, and I'm happy to, by the way, dig back in and check me on this.
Will do.
I'm very, very excited about the possibilities, the creative possibilities and tools that it opens up for our talent, for our end users. And in fact, we've got some immediate plans. We're working with an AI-assisted company. Oh, by the way, just our search at the moment on our site is AI-assisted. And it's incredible. Like the deeper dive that it does into our catalog that generally was handled by manual tagging. I mean, it's really incredible. I'm amazed every day that I use it. And it's for a search, it's taking us deeper into the catalog and uncovering legacy material that I never would have thought of in a search. And I'm hoping that's happening for our clients. I think the real thing that we all really are anxious about is this AI created music. And just like everyone else, I hate it. But I think the key word is training. And we have to be, look, there would be no fake Drake without Drake. So we have to be Drake. We have to push. I think it pushes us harder, just like any good competitor does. It pushes us harder to be awesome, to be inspirational, to push the boundaries. And I think, and this might be a hippie commune, but I think it's a kick in the ass for all of us and reminds us, oh shit, we can't just phone it in. So look, the genie is out the bottle. None of us can stop that. So let's embrace it where it's a positive thing. And I think all industries, and we have to look at our industries outside, are doing the same. But I think you're either playing defense or offense. And I speak to so many people that are in defense at the moment, and they're thinking about selling their companies, and is this the end of production music stuff? That's like, for me, that just creates opportunity.
Love it. So, yeah, and I think you and I are definitely on the same wavelength there, because even a lot of the critical videos I've put out, I usually try to end it with a very positive, exactly, very, very similar to the message you've given there, which is that AI is going to be great at rehashing yesterday's music. It's going to do that way better, faster, cheaper than we can ever hope to try to do that. So let's just give that up, rehashing yesterday's music. And like you said, let's forge for what's our music, what makes us unique and special, and let's push our own creative boundaries so that you're right. We'll be so good that AI people will want to use AI to emulate us. So you're absolutely right. There is only that sort of offensive move forward position if you want to stay ahead of this thing and not let it gobble up your creativity. Yeah.
Also, look, history tells us that great music comes from pain and emotion. And that's the one thing a machine doesn't have. So lean into that, lean into how you're feeling as a musician. You know, the magic of being a musician is being with other people and playing and performing with other people and learning your craft that way. And we all have to remember that, because as a composer, it's so easy to just come down and sit in front of your computer and create music, and remind you to get out there and actually, even though bring the skills that you learn from playing with other musicians back to the computer, so you're an input rather than you're a passive.
Love it. Love that. Thank you so much, Russell. I really, really appreciate your time today, man.
Cool.
And I know that everybody watching this definitely learned a lot and definitely are feeling probably very excited and motivated to potentially pitch to you. So hopefully maybe you'll get some really high quality submissions here in the near future. And if you want to give any last minute little advice, little pep talk to somebody who is maybe in the beginning stages of their journey, that's usually who's subscribed to my channel and following me here. They might be within the first year or two, maybe up to 5 years, where, you know how it is. It's slow going. It's kind of get the snowball going sort of a thing, waiting for the royalties, waiting for the placements. What encouragement or advice or insights could you share to somebody who's maybe just in that sort of beginning stage of their career?
Wow, that's a big responsibility. I know. I think having been lucky enough, and by the way, it is an equal amount of luck to it is talent, but I think the beauty of a future in the music, as being a musician or in our industry, is we're so fortunate and lucky to not only be creating music, but then to make money and actually have this as a job is just incredibly exciting. And it's not easy. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. It doesn't come easy. You've got to, just like anything else, you've got to do your 10,000 hours. And by the way, that's true. I don't know if you've heard, I'm sure they've heard that before, but it's not bullshit. You really have to do that 10,000 hours, and it will come. It will come. And I think I remain extremely excited about it. And I'm excited to have people pitch us, because I'm sure there's some incredible talent out there, but it's all the same old bits of advice that anyone wise, and I'm not wise, but anyone wise will always give you. You just got to keep plugging away, no matter what people say. I had a real job. I sold car polish door to door. That's all character building. It all helps create great music in the future.
Absolutely. Just keep showing up, guys. You heard it from Russell himself. So thank you so much, man. Appreciate your time. Hopefully I can wrangle you up and get you back on the channel at some point in the future as well. If you guys have questions for Russell, or something that obviously we didn't get into everything we possibly could, I think you're right, man. We could probably sit here and talk for hours, and hey, maybe in the future we'll be able to do that. But if you guys have future thoughts, questions about it, please do comment below. We'd love to hear about it. But thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time.
Jesse, thank you. You're doing a great job. You're doing God's work, my friend.
Thank you.